I'm an earthworm woman. In the mornings, I fill my tanks by breathing the energy of the sea and tasting the power of the sun penetrating my skin. There's an air of no care, which comes with age, and I hold my head up proudly, liking who I've become. I'm not afraid of smells, or dirt, or to walk barefoot across the stones. Sometimes I wade through the shallow water just to embrace its fluid element, my hair often crazy and loose, being pulled by and flying in the wind. I can be glamorous if I want to, although makeup was never my thing. And I've learnt that life is for living, not fearing, and so I absorb it like a sponge.
Aha. Good morning, grand rising, and welcome to number 72 of the Earthworm Woman podcasts. I've got Julie on today, and I think she's just going into her office. She's just actually jumped off, so I think she hadn't arrived yet, and then I saw she turned up and she was in her car, so I'll just let her get set up. Let's have a quick, I don't know, but sort of talk about the world at the moment. She's entered the studio again. Actually, no, I don't want to talk about the world, but there's horrendous things going on, obviously, with the fires in Victoria. So I really, anybody that's stuck there, I've heard that there was an animal shelter that was burnt down. And thank goodness I saw that a lot of people donated to, I don't know, whatever they can do. Hopefully the animals were okay. Not sure where that was, but somewhere obviously up in Victoria. What else? Yeah, my friend's been kind of stuck. Good morning, Jan. Stuck in Vanuatu, where they had an earthquake Saturday, and horrendous. I mean, she was actually there by herself. The island, if you ever want to go somewhere for a holiday, she reckons it's absolutely stunning. And the island was just, but she was the only guest because people just aren't going there apparently. And it was, wind and rain, but she's fine. She just was just outside the local town, and now she's gone into the town. And don't be put off. That's just, I think it's at this time of the year. Apparently it's like that, but it's beautiful, incredible place, she reckons. Just before you come in, Julie, I'm just going to do a little plug for Maddalena's absolutely exquisite products. Now she's given me a sample of one which is lime canzia, and I thought it was actually cacao, but it's something like orange and olive oil, and it's so beautiful. I actually wanted to eat myself because it was so delicious and tasted like, there she is, good morning, tasted so, it smelled so delectable that you want to eat it. Now at the end of this you can see all the people who support me. I support them back, all the sponsors, partners, whatever you want to call them, and really it's a nice way to connect everybody. So I hope that you look to buy from Maddalena and the Hempflower, Denise up in Townsville, and Go to Life. Now, I'm going to bring Julie in because she's sitting in her car. It's probably bloody hot up there. I thought you were going to maybe get out and go to your shop.
Yes, I needed to get here. So, and I actually quite like being in the car just because I don't have all the proper setup with cameras and microphones and things. So here I've got something to stick the phone on and it stays.
As long as you're not stopping your shop being open.
No. It's another hour. We're an hour ahead of you in Queensland, and we don't open till 10.
You don't know
various
things. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Julie. And before we start, I'm just going to, before you start even, so anything that you say or I say we talk about here is not giving medical advice. It's just discussion around the topic and discussion around this theory or this practice. Is that right?
Yes. So Dr. Harmer, who we will talk about, was a conventional doctor. He was actually the youngest graduate ever to graduate through medicine in Germany because he was brilliant. And so he sort of zoomed through the course and was an internal specialist, so an expert on internal organs, and basically just had a thriving academic career. He worked at a university hospital in Germany, and so research was part of his role. And it wasn't until he had his own personal tragedy that he chose to sort of look more deeply into causes. And that's kind of where he started to go off the mainstream path. But his desire was...
And you told me a little bit about that tragedy. I was going to say, you did tell me about that tragedy. I guess it was to do with his son, right?
Yes, yeah. But his desire always was that anything he discovered be incorporated into the mainstream. That's a really important point, you know? He wasn't this rogue doctor that said, I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. He was very committed to mainstream medicine and wanted to make a contribution to that body of research and knowledge. So the personal tragedy that happened, he was a specialist, so obviously his children probably went to private school and lived, you know, were with a higher class of other academics' children, and so his daughter was a model, fashion model, and quite stunning, and was invited away on a yacht trip the weekend with some other fellows that owned yachts, and, you know, young people that had access to these things. And Dr. Harmer, her father, because she was only sort of 20, I think, said, you can go, but you must have a chaperone, and insisted that his eldest son, who was younger than her, but that he went along. I think he was 19 or 18, 19 at the stage. Anyway, tragedy happened in that they were making a bit of fuss on this island, and sort of backtrack, I don't know how many years earlier, but decades earlier, there'd been an election in Italy where the people chose to become a republic. So they, unlike Britain, that have remained a monarchy in, you know, they said, no, we want to be called the Republic of Italy, and we don't want a royal family here siphoning off our taxes. So they were exiled out of Italy and went to live on an island off the coast of France, as I remember, but I can't remember the name of that particular island. Well, this island that this group of young yuppies went to happened to be where this family had been exiled to. So their little blonde curly son, that was only like 3 when they'd been exiled, had grown up on this island, you know, knew that his destiny was to become a king. So his dominion was the island, you know. It's like, I run this island. I should be running Italy, but I'm stuck over here. So when these teenagers were making all this fuss, he thought, right, I'll teach them, you know, a lesson. So he got his rifle, which was quite legal in those days to have a gun, but he went down to the beach with the plan of shooting into the air to give them a fright and say, you know, this is my
obviously
island.
He's not 3. He's older, much older now.
Much older now, yes. So that's decades before they got sent from Italy, and there's original footage of him as this little blonde curly haired boy, but now he's probably 40-ish. And so he shoots his rifle into the air in the darkness. And but before that, apparently someone on the boat saw him walking up the jetty with a gun and sort of wrestled him as if, what are you doing? Don't bring a gun near our boat. And in the tussle, he pulled the trigger. He admitted at one point, and the bullet went through the window of the yacht and shot Dr. Harmer's son, who was asleep, and shot him. And the bullet went into his stomach, which I don't think they've mastered stomach transplants yet with all the other transplants. So it was the worst place for it to hit, pretty much.
On a boat.
And pardon?
Oh no, yeah, on a boat.
On a boat on a deserted island that had no hospital. So there was this whole big drama, and there's some evidence that there were intentional delays, but I don't know anything about that. But eventually he ended up in a hospital. Dr. Harmer insisted that he be sent to Germany because Dr. Harmer was obviously a doctor, internal specialist, and his wife was a doctor as well. So they then oversaw trying to save his life, had 8 surgeries, including the amputation of his leg. And, just to try and save his life, whatever it takes. And in the end, he died in Dr. Harmer's arms. So it was a terrible tragedy that, he didn't see coming. So,
and he'd sent him there. Go on.
Pardon?
And he'd sent him there
He had sent him there. That's right. I hadn't thought of that aspect. Yes, there was a sense of, what have I done? So he wanted justice, clearly. So he set out on a mission of who did this. Let's make sure that, justice is done. But his body, he believes, I don't know, but he believes that his body commenced an adaptation process at the moment that he got the news. Looking back, he thinks that must be what happened. But he didn't know, wasn't aware at the time. A few months later, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. Officially.
Dr. Harmer, obviously.
Dr. Harmer, yeah. He'd never been sick. There was no cancer in his family. He was a very strong, about 45, German doctor. However, he was a really lovely doctor because I'm not sure of the timeline exactly, but from what I gather, he was almost like had engineering, physics gifts as well as medicine, and had invented various medical instruments. There was one called the Harmer scalpel, which was patented, and he got royalties from his inventions because they were so much better than what they already had. They kind of all got adopted in the hospitals. So he had this independent source of income, which is very important, right? Because as we know, research is often steered by who's paying for it. So somebody who doesn't need to be paid or get a grant does sort of the research that they want to do.
Yeah.
And they don't need to come up with a certain outcome that's marketable to anybody. Anyway, so but before all this, he had taken a break and was living in Rome, and he and his wife were sort of like almost mini missionaries in a sense, not spreading religion, but offering free care in the slums of Rome to those who couldn't afford it. So he was a very compassionate, caring man who thought everybody deserves care, medical
especially
care.
after the tragedy. After that,
No, that was before. So I'm saying this is the character of the man. Before that happened, he was earning enough money from his inventions and chose to go and work in these slums in Rome with his wife.
Okay.
So that's who he was before the tragedy. after the tragedy, he ends up back in Germany trying to oversee his son's care. And I gather that he then just ended up working at the university hospital. But once he got testicular cancer, he didn't know anything else, so he chose to have surgery the conventional way.
Yeah.
But apparently, based on what he'd seen, he chose not to have chemotherapy or radiation. Didn't kind of think that was a good idea based on what he'd seen. So, and as it turns out, we don't know the depth of this story, but his wife also got breast cancer after the tragedy. So both of them turn up with a cancer out of the blue.
Wow.
Meanwhile, he's in a hospital in Belgium as a cancer hospital with 200 women under his care. And it's kind of like the universe lined all this up, because this tragedy happened in 1979.
Right.
And he must have got, cancer and everything, journeyed probably through 80. And then sort of, obviously pondered, could this be related? And he would always talk, even before this tragedy, when he'd been working in hospitals, he would listen to the people who would come to get their diagnosis. And he'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, to have to give you this news." And they would say, "Well, it's the worst possible time because it's, we've just gone through this tragedy." And you go, store that. But time and again, if they took the time, he took the time to listen, there was always a tragedy. 12 to 18 months before they ended up in his office. So he just stored that away. Then he had his own tragedy, had his own result. His wife had her own result. He'd always said, I'm sure there's a link there. Somebody who's got more time than me should be studying this. And they said, I have to study this now. It's crossed my path and no one else is studying it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, apparently I have heard another German virologist say, which I haven't looked into, and it wouldn't have reached our news, but apparently there was a big body of research that did or had already established some sort of link between, sort of stressful experiences and cancer. So I've heard this virologist say he must have known about that, heard about it because it was front page news in the newspaper in those days. So he kind of said, look, I think the brain that coordinates everything else in our body is probably linked to these things starting up. I wonder. It was just a hypothesis at the time. Anyway,
it's kind of like the opposite of manifesting. It's like almost like the opposite. Like
we call it adaptation. So like turtles adapted a hard shell to protect them, a turtle, all sorts of, when we were at school, we learnt about adaptation. A really interesting one I learnt because, people with dark skin, we don't really know the story of how they adapted. We just know that they've got great dark skin to help them deal with the sun in the warm climates that they live in.
Yep.
But apparently it was darker people that travelled to Sweden and, all those Nordic countries. They were dark when they got on boats and went there. This is partly history. However, obviously with lack of sun, they got paler, because they weren't out in the sun. So they did not have a suntan on top of their olive skin.
Yeah.
And apparently, I only learnt this in the last few years, it was those who became paler, so they're probably already pale, and then they got paler, that then were able to get enough sun in this climate to make enough vitamin D to become fertile. And they then were the ones that reproduced.
Right.
And then they became paler and paler and paler, and that's how we got white-skinned people.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, I'd never heard that before, but that's an adaptation. You know, this dark skin protecting us from the sun is not doing us any good in that climate, because we need that sun
it's too much
to trigger our hormone cascade to make the hormones to reproduce. And they're the ones that did reproduce. And then their children reproduced. And so that's a really, really relevant example of how we've adapted to where we were living in order for a good biological reason. So that's why he then started thinking, I wonder, you know, could there be some kind of good reason? So this is where, you know, it's such a big mind shift. what he had, and he said, I can't imagine that, you know, this terrible cancer thing that kills people and they die of it. Why on earth would that be an intentional adaptation by the body? It was just a question, which is what we've all been taught to trust the science, haven't we? Trust the science. And he trusted science. He trusted science when he was the one doing the experiments and gathering the data. He said, well, I've got to gather data. Now, the universe had put him in a position where he had 200 women with cancer, and lots of being paid to talk to them and find out what their story was. And they all told him their story. So he knew that Gladys had ovarian and Mary had breast, and, you know, Sally had uterus. He collected all the data. That was his job. However, in 1981, that big engineering company named Siemens, have you heard of Siemens?
Yes.
I think it's engineering. They invented the CT machine.
Right.
To take CT scans.
Yeah.
Before that, we didn't have them. We only had X-ray. So all of a sudden, not only did he have all these patients, did he have this inquiring mind and a brilliant scientific, you know, training. All of a sudden, he was being given film of people's brains. Taken, they're sort of cross-section slices as opposed to X-ray, which, you know, normal X-ray vision. Yes. There's slices of all the organs. So he had all this data. So because he sort of had this hunch that, you know, this can't be random. Why did my wife and I both get this, you know, months after we lost our son? And all these women have all had a tragedy. And anyway, as I was going to say, apparently his son came to him in a dream when he had this kind of inkling that the secret might lie in the brain. Son came to him in a dream and said, you're right, Dad. You're on the right track, but there's more to discover.
Wow.
So that was his confirmation, like, okay, I'm going to do this for my son. So he went on to name the shock, the moment of the shock, a DHS. And that stands for, his son's name was Dirk, which must be a German name, because I remember learning about Dirk Hartog at school.
Dutch as well. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay, right, maybe, So his son's name was Dirk. Obviously, his second name was Harmer, so that's DH. And then S is a word in German, but we've called it syndrome in English, syndrome. So a Dirk Harmer syndrome, we kind of call it an activation, or a Dirk Harmer syndrome activation process gets set in motion at that moment. This is what Dr. Harmer suspected. So he then started thinking, well, you know, like any good scientist, I will have to collect data and see if there's any pattern emerging. Yeah. You know, did Sally have a similar Dirk DHS moment to you know, Elizabeth over there? because they both ended up with ovarian cancer.
Right.
So let me look more closely at what happened to those two.
Mm.
And obviously he then had 200 women. So he found out what happened to the ones that got breast cancer and what was their story, and formed categories. But he also had their brain scans. So he obviously went to the brain scans and said, well, does Mary and, Elizabeth have the same mark? This particular, have anything in the brain indicating? Now, at some point in all this process, he found a mark that he thought, I wonder, does this mean anything? On his own brain and his wife's.
Mm.
And then he went to look in all these women's ones and he found the same mark. But it was in all different.
I guess that doesn't really.
What's the mark? The mark is, it's actually a spherical, I'm going to call it an imprint, because it doesn't really, it didn't grow, it appeared. It appears. It turns up at the moment of the DHS, which is mind-boggling, but this is what this is what he found. It turns up. And because I've only ever seen CT scan images of it, I assumed it was horizontal. It was a horizontal thing. And what it looks like is it's like a dartboard is the closest thing. It's a series of concentric circles, almost like a tree when you cut a tree and you see all the little concentric, like the thing. It's like that. But because the CT scan starts, there's various parts of the brain that they take CT scans of. But, this sphere thing, wherever it turned up, I'll do like a 3D image. And it's a little bit sort of more like an oval, I think. More like an oval. So you can imagine if you cut an oval across the top, it's a smaller cross section than if you went down the oval and then smaller, yeah? So those who have followed his teaching and studied this in depth always want the cross section in the middle, the biggest, widest one in the middle of this imprint, because that shows the whole picture of what they want to see. So he found that in his brain. And for some weird reason, it was in the testicular control center of the brain, where the testes were controlled.
Yeah.
His wife's one was in the breast relay of the brain, where the breast was relayed. Mary's was in the ovary, Elizabeth's was in the ovary, Gladys was in the uterus. He mapped the entire brain with this weird mark thing moving all around. I'll give you a moment to take that in.
Different places for each of the people who had the different types of cancer.
Yeah, all the categories. Yeah. So the ovary all turned up.
And they all had it in the same place.
There. And all the uterus ones turned up there. And so on. So he was like, speechless. This can't be what I'm seeing. Is there any other explanation? What could it be? But a meticulous German scientist. We're not talking about crazy man. And so he then went deeper and deeper and deeper to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and, get a really, really solid body of research before he was ready to present it to anyone else. It was a big secret. So finally, apparently one day, he thought, I've got to share this. We need to incorporate this into what we're doing for these cancer patients. It's a whole new insight into what's happening. So he took his body of research to his supervisor, which is the way you do it, because in university settings, you propose something, you give your research, and then it has to be peer reviewed. We've all heard about peer reviewed and validated by your peers to check if you're off on the wrong track or you're really onto something. So he went to supervisor, said, I'm applying for peer review of what I found. you know. And the supervisor said, oh, okay then, took it to the head of the university hospital, who apparently said, no, we're not going to pursue this. There were other words, but they're the ones I'm going to choose to use. We're not going to pursue this. It's going to go in the just in the closet here, lock the door, and I don't want to hear any more mention of it.
Wow.
So they came back to Dr. Harmon. They said, no, sorry, we're not pursuing it.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't going to take that for an answer. He was a very strong man. So kind of like that. Pardon?
I'm just saying that he's a scientist, not like he was just a doctor. He actually was a scientist studying.
That's it. Yeah. So he began to appeal. What's going on? This is what, you have to do this. This is in university protocol. This needs to be looked into. Well, they just stonewalled him. And then finally went to court. He took it to court, and the judge said, yes, university protocol, blah, blah, you have to look into it. If it's crazy, it's crazy. Look into it. And that would have been the end of it had they looked into it.
Like Victoria says, universities are funded by pharmaceutical companies, so it makes sense, yes.
Yeah, well, it was way back in 1981 too, so things were very different then, though things had begun, but they're not like they are now. So he didn't lose his job or anything. He was just stonewalled.
Yeah, right.
So he went, so the judge said, you have to do it. So he went obviously back to uni. When are we going to get started? Here's my stuff. And he did do various presentations in front of other doctors. And apparently, because there were egos involved, they obviously wanted to prove him wrong because, we don't want him out there spreading misinformation or disinformation. So we have to prove him wrong. So they would give him CT scans only. I was only allowed to know the sex of the person, their hormone status, which becomes very important in his research, meaning a premenopausal or postmenopausal woman, or a man over 75 or under 75. He needed to know their handedness, which also becomes very important, if they're left-handed or right-handed, because that was another pattern that he found.
Right.
Because science is all about looking for patterns, because apparently not all of the women that got all the women that got ovarian cancer had that mark there, but not all the women that had this particular experience, DHS, shock experience, same experience, they didn't all get left ovarian cancer. Some of them got right. So he was thinking, well, why'd you get it on the right and why'd you get it on the left? So he went down that. And obviously they have to rule out everything. And through a process of elimination, he worked out that it was to do with the way their brain was wired. And we already know that at the moment of conception, brain wiring or handedness is established. So identical twins, because it's one egg, one always gets the left-handedness and one gets the right-handedness.
Yeah.
It's just what happens. Right. Because this handedness is handed out at that moment.
Right.
And so if
and it's to do with the way you, a bit like to do with the way you think, isn't it? What they say.
Well, it's how your brain actually, what he discovered is, like, we know it as I'm right-handed or left-handed, pretty much, because we just know that one of our hands is so much more useful to us than the other one. But there's actually a lot more to it, that our whole right side of our body is actually controlled, is more dominant. It's called your dominant side, and this other side's your recessive side.
Yeah.
So anyway, so So he needed to know their handedness. He needed to know what gender they were, and he needed to know their hormone status. But apart from that, he didn't need any other information about what symptoms they were presenting with or anything.
She'll get to that.
All he got, all he got was the CT scan of the brain.
Yeah.
And they said, now tell us, what's going on with this person?
Oh, God.
It's a female. She's, normal hormone status, which is premenopausal, and she's right brain wired, right-handed. And he would then 100% of the time tell him exactly what she had presented with.
What the problem
100%.
was. Wow.
So he would say left ovarian cancer. He could even tell if it was in healing or had just happened, how long ago it had happened, and the whole scenario. Any secondaries that may have turned up as a result of the same experience, because he could tell how old they were. So we go, well, at that moment, she actually got these two programs switched on. And apparently they came up to him afterwards and said, we know you're right. No one else can do that.
Yeah.
Know what somebody's got. We know you're right. However, we can't be seen to be supporting it.
Because they can't
be seen to be supporting.
Connected to something. It's
we can't support you publicly.
Yeah.
But on the side, we know you're right.
Wow.
So that was his experience. So he continued to look for other doctors that would investigate his findings. Anyway, he went back to the court because they weren't doing anything, and there was a court order that they had to. Went back to the judge and said, look, they're not doing what you've ordered them to do. What do we do now? He gave them another order. But in that court case, the judge said, but why aren't you doing it? Isn't this what you guys do?
Yeah.
And, why haven't you done it? And the answer was, we don't want to.
We don't want to.
We don't want to.
Yeah.
So I think another order was made. Yes, you have to. Now,
we don't want to because they might find something that actually
we might find something we don't want to find.
Yeah.
So if we don't look, we won't find it.
Yeah.
I imagine it would have been far more useful had they looked and discredited this crazy quack who was out there doing all this harm to all these people that were listening to him. Not that he was actually talking to anybody at that stage. Because he was very, very careful, because he didn't want to step on any toes. He wanted this to be able to help the most people.
Yeah.
He just wanted to change the system. He went into battle against the system.
And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to share that? Discover something.
So that's kind of how he then got sidelined. I noticed in your promo you said he lost his registration in 1986. In the blurb about today.
I took that from somewhere. So yes. So
1986. So this thing with his son happened 1979. By 86, he'd been fighting. He wasn't actually, as far as I know, really treating patients. Yeah. But he did write some books and he did publish his findings. And from what I gather, there was a very, very famous case where somehow his book ended up in the hands of a father whose daughter had liver cancer. And this father wanted the opportunity to have his daughter be seen to by this doctor. I don't know the real, all of it's in German, so I only kind of get the bits that we get translated and passed on. But there was this big thing where apparently he wanted to pursue this particular pathway, but already things had been put in place where they didn't want that to happen. and that she needed to have standard medical care. So apparently this father was sort of hiding his daughter, running all over Europe from this country, because there wasn't the EU then, you know, so it's kind of like, if I can just get her to Spain, then they can't tell us what to do and so on.
Right.
So that's a very famous case. Anyway, at some point, which I should get the timeline, Dr. Hummer was exiled. His registration, probably soon after he lost his registration, he was exiled to Spain. And there was no EU, so it was a separate. What it reminds me of, remember Christopher Skase ran off to Mallorca, the island of Mallorca?
I do. Whenever that was,
yeah. I wonder what year that was. So that was Spain. So Spain must have been a little bit of a safe haven for you know, people who were outcasted in their an outcast in their society. So he just set up a clinic in Spain where he was free to do whatever he wanted and continue his research with real patients. So I'm gathering everybody that wanted his help went to Spain, and that was legal. Whatever you do over there, it's none of our business. You just can't do it here in Germany. Well, I don't know why, but there appears to have been a movement to globalize things in those days and to get control over all the medical systems around the place. So they ended up getting control of the medical system in Spain. So he had to leave Spain as well.
Wow. Okay.
And he went to Norway. So I think he must have friends in Norway. I'm not quite sure how he was protected in Norway, but he was. And he continued his research and his battle against the authorities to get his, he called it the new medicine in the beginning, incorporated into the medical world. Now, from what I gather, he died of a stroke, which is very significant because it's a particular DHS, in 2017, which was his final chance to appeal the loss of his medical registration. So he fought and fought all these years, and they must have said you get one last chance or something. He had that one last chance, and we kind of think it was the devastation of that loss that finally he had a stroke, which is to do with that sort of thing, and he died. It's very interesting because he had a very big following in Europe. And
so
there was,
what about his wife? Did she?
His wife. Well, we don't know a lot about the wife, but I have heard recently that it wasn't breast cancer. She died. It wasn't breast cancer that she actually died of. So I'm going to assume she had surgery and that was dealt with. She actually died of a heart program. And the heart program she did, you know how we've all heard about myocarditis? Well, the part of the brain that heart that affects is called the myocardium. And Dr. Harmer had found that one of these adaptive programs that affects that part, because remember, he's mapped the entire body and the corresponding brain area, that it's the heart muscle. It's trigger, we're going to call it DHS trigger, that sets off an adaptation in the heart muscle, is an overwhelm conflict. A conflict of being completely overwhelmed. So one would assume that what this wife had experienced with her son, then her own breast cancer journey, her husband's testicular cancer, he loses his medical license, you know, their whole world is torn apart. She may well have experienced overwhelm.
Absolutely.
And it must have been such a significant one that the heart attack that resulted, she died from that heart attack. So most of this journey, he did remarry, but a lot of this journey he did on his own. So that's kind of, so he wrote lots of books in German, big volumes, and lots of study, and was thankfully left alone in Norway to just continue. So from 1980, probably when he started, to 2017, That's 37 years of independent research. I don't know of anyone else that studied anything unfunded, self-funded for 37 years and went deeper and deeper and deeper.
Now there's a question on the side here.
Yes, sorry. I can't see the question.
No, I'll put it up. It's do any doctors practice this now? And then she put who. Don't know why WHO. But regarding that though, so you haven't got to obviously yet what the actual, I mean, how if he discovered it, he discovered all this correlation, but the actual practice,
Are there any doctors?
But just how what is the actual practice then that he was doing?
Yes. Well, he nominated this. Remember, I told you there was a father that was running all over Europe trying to have his daughter's liver cancer sort of dealt with in this way. Well, because he was so committed to it, Dr. Harmer actually nominated him to be his appointed lecturer to spread the word to the world and teach the findings. But he never actually set up a practice, so to speak, or trained anybody to be. Well, there is one secret person that I can't tell you about, but there is a protege who's still living, who trained to be a doctor, saw through some things on his way through his training, knew because Dr. Harmer was headline news, and just sort of thought, I want to find out what he's on about. So he approached him to say, I want to be your student. I want to work out what all this is about. So he learnt directly from him, but he was a regular doctor. And I think he, there's some really funny sides to this. So I'm just trying to work out how to explain this, but Dr. Harmer even went as deep into female orgasms and how they, how do I explain it? To do with their handedness, right? So there's this whole pattern that, let me just think. It's also to do with what's happened in their life. But this doctor who I've happened to have done a little course with, he said, it was my job to ask all my female patients about their orgasms, to collect data for Dr. Harmer. So because he was still seeing patients, whereas Dr. Harmer was just researching and all that sort of stuff. So he had all these sort of little plants, I think, around the place who were in the real world collecting data. And so he just said it was just so embarrassing because they'd come to me with, a tumour or something, and I'd have to say, by the way, would you mind telling me about your orgasm? And anyway, so that's just a funny little side. So that doctor is still around. Yeah. Not practicing in Germany because he's not allowed, but he is somewhere around in Europe, and just an amazing resource.
Victoria says, what are those?
Pardon?
She says, what are those when you mention orgasms?
Yeah. So anyway, there's a whole, I'll just tell you one of the splits. The split that he found was the vaginal orgasm versus the clitoral orgasm, and there's a whole series of reasons why you get one, or the left-handed woman can have both, and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, but I just thought that was an interesting aside that this particular doctor had to gather that data.
Always interesting,
So interesting, Anyway, so he's the only doctor. He's practicing in a place where he's left alone at the moment, but we keep him anonymous, and we try and all learn from him as much as we can in the meantime. Yeah, sorry.
But I guess the thing is, it sounds like obviously it's just all the things he's discovered, or all the research, all of that. But to put the connections in the place, but how does it actually heal, I suppose? Is it to do with...
Yes, well, we're very careful about that word heal, because we don't heal anything. We don't treat, and we don't heal.
Yeah.
What Dr. Harmer did, he really just observed nature and what actually happens out there. Because as we know, he grew up in the forest in Germany and had a really close connection with nature and animals. And he noticed that where there was no vet or hospital, the animals healed. There was some sort of internal mechanism that our bodies had to heal itself. Which is why in the promo blurb, the Switzerland Cancer Council said his information is very dangerous because it encourages people to not seek standard medical care. Because they think, oh, we just don't have to do anything.
So it's connecting up with your intellect in a way.
Yeah. So they sort of took a principle that he discovered and then used it, weaponized it against his knowledge, against his body of knowledge. You know, he's saying the body heals itself. How dare he say that? But we know, since we were little children, that if we fell over and grazed our knee, it would form a scab, the skin underneath would heal, and the scab would fall off. So we know that's what happened. So they can't convince anybody that that's not a natural phenomenon. But things inside our body, and they've even managed to convince us that things that happen on our skin cancers, don't heal and won't heal on their own. We need to do something. And the holistic people have said, well, we like to use black salve because obviously we do need to do something. And Dr. Harmon did find that something needed to change, but it wasn't actually a form of treatment that was needed. What he proposed was that what was needed was the shift in our subconscious that had occurred at the moment of that shock, that Dirk-Harmer syndrome shock, had to be addressed. Otherwise, it would continue on autopilot, because that's just the way this seems to work. It wasn't planned, but this is what he discovered. It goes on autopilot until it's given a clear message, turn this off.
Yeah. So I've been talking to Julie a bit on certain subjects, and she's going, did this happen around this time? Did this happen? So she's trying to find a connecting possible change in something that might have created whatever the subject was we were talking about. But that's how it works.
Yes. Yeah.
So looking back.
And what he discovered was that this isn't 100%, but it just seems to be that sometimes all that the body's subconscious is waiting for is for you to make this conscious connection to what had happened and what it's doing to help you with what happened. So it's not stupid. Your subconscious very, very smart.
Yeah. You're talking about the physical there. I mean, you do that with emotional stuff, don't you? You look back into your childhood, you look at what happened. Was there something there that perhaps made you act the way you do now, or you know, damage you, that makes you, you know, protect
and defend it. You defend yourself.
So you look into that, but so it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of these things are inbuilt defenses, is a good word. But we've evolved, apparently our bodies have evolved beyond merely defense and into proactive adaptation to help you better cope, not just protect yourself, but actually cope with this new reality that you find yourself in. Your husband left you, your child's died or got diagnosed with this or that. whatever this new momentary reality that's hit you in a very deep way, and you weren't prepared for it. That's one of the big criteria. It's got to come for this big thing to get turned on. It's got to be something you haven't already adapted to. Yeah. Oh, I know about sunburn. You know, I'm used to that. I just do this and this. And if I get sunburn, I don't sort of panic. However, we have sort of been taught to panic about sunburn. Yeah. Which might be related to why we get skin cancers. Yeah. Because we're now afraid of the sun. And if we get a really bad sunburn, we might think, oh, gosh, you know.
Oh, gosh, suddenly I'm going
to me. Maybe the sun attacked me. And, oh, gosh, I hope the skin cancer runs in my family. And off we go.
We don't have so much of a problem with that in Melbourne because...
Okay, yeah.
The sun, you know, turns up. Well, it's actually around today, but yeah.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that he sort of found, that the particular skin cancery one is what he described an attack conflict. Yeah. So, you know, people who don't have that on their radar and don't have that kind of, oh my goodness, experience about the sun probably won't need to be defended against the sun by an extra growth, which is like an armor that your body.
I love the sun. I'm a sun head. If it's there, I love it. Yeah.
So it's just
very interesting. So what Victoria's asking then is it's something. There's no practitioners. You don't go, hey, there's someone who does.
You don't go see anyone. No. Many of us have studied this in depth, and I'm more a teacher. I'm a history teacher. So I enjoy teaching history of what has happened in the past and what various theorists have proposed. And I'm very passionate about seeing if there's any way that the medical world could, you know, put this to bed once and for all, so that people aren't hearing about it and seeking, you know, assistance in this way. So for some reason, Europe wasn't prepared to pursue it, but Australia might, you know, there might be someone that hears about this that says, oh, yes, because you know how we often hear of people that become convinced of something when they set out on a mission to disprove it.
Yes. So when you say put it to bed, you mean the opposite. It just actually stop blocking it.
I think it's got a lot of potential from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But I'm not a medical practitioner. No. I don't treat people or give any advice. But I do feel that, you know, this sort of knowledge should be passed on, and everyone should always know what a brilliant mind that you know,
absolutely. So
discovered.
To pass it on. Yeah.
And then they start to look in their own life, which is how we all learn, and say, oh, you know, yeah, that is funny. You know, Aunt Sally got ovarian cancer. I remember she had a miscarriage or an abortion not long before that. Yeah, you know, just start joining all your own dots of all the people you know that have got whatever and become your own scientist. And then we can... I'm going, like we're talking about, we were thinking of running an event where different people presented information.
Yes, I've worked where it's 10 o'clock, you probably have to go into your shop. But yeah, that's I'll start looking at like where and how what we
can do.
Yes. But we perhaps start in the Gold Coast, or I'll do one in Melbourne and then come to the Gold Coast, or whatever. Because
so right now I've got a website underway, but it's not live. But I do have a Facebook and Instagram called the Healing Tribe.
Oh, yeah.
There are others, but mine's sort of purpley lotus flower-ish, I think.
The Healing Tribe.
Yeah,
is your sort of like Facebook.
That's my Facebook and Instagram. So if people want to follow on there, I will announce any events where I'm going to teach more of this.
I'll get that together. It's just I you know, I'm doing that thing of, okay, so what are you actually, which thing are you doing when? I can't do everything, you know.
I know, that's right. Yeah.
And that's my fault. Actually, I've been talking to someone about that this weekend, but you know, because I do this and I do that, and like I really want to build earthwormwoman, but I also want to make maroon. So let's work on 2 of those things.
That's right.
Then you got to pay for the rent, of course. So that's why they do the other things.
Yeah. So if anyone on here, you know, would like to help organise something, then they're welcome to.
What it is, if anyone's up in the Gold Coast, for example, well, I know there's people here who are healers, or not necessarily healers, but practitioners of health. Like, you know, in Melbourne, we've got the Maddalenas who make stuff and who have beautiful products, and I've got probably Fiona will come over and do her fascia release. So what sort of ones we had 5 or 6 up there, and yourself as well.
Yes.
So we set up this kind of day,
collective,
weekend.
Yeah, they call it a collective. Yeah.
And I'll wander around talking. Whatever. So, I might do something too, but yes. So that's, I'll start to put things like that on my page as well. And there's your page, the Healing Tribe. So you have just plug your shop for a second there. You have a crystal shop?
I have a crystal shop on the Gold Coast. Yeah. So that's sort of the bread and butter, and it's a really nice place to, as it turns out, many people come up to me and say, what's a good healing crystal? And I say, what do you need healing from? And then they tell me. And so I've been collecting a whole lot. And then I say, well, what's your story? I'm sort of do a little bit of Dr. Harmer research myself. And so after sort of like, you know, 5 or 6 years of doing this, I still haven't been able to disprove it, which is very interesting. So,
well, it's making me think about any, like my mum had a blood disorder, you know, going back to maybe what.
So I'm in a very unique position, because I have people who don't have to pay me, and they come straight out with what's going on. You know, normal conversation people don't, but they come straight up to me because they really want a magic bullet crystal that's going to fix this thing. So I actually have, you know, a lot of access to lots of people, and because I own the shop, I'm allowed to.
What's the name of your shop?
Crystal Expo. Crystal Expo at Coolangatta. Yeah. So I then sort of, you know, have time to talk more at length, and
do you just do crystals then? Is it just crystals? Pardon? Anything besides crystals, or just crystals?
Well, I have a healing space at the back that I've just emptied out of crystals, basically. So I've sort of set up a little space where practitioners can probably come and do some things, or we run little events. So I haven't got that. That's what the healing. So the reason I called it the Healing Tribe is because it requires a tribe. You know, right now we find the lump, we have an experience. Other than possibly going to a naturopath, who are now trained in universities, which is very important, by the same people that train the doctors and the nurses. And they're told, don't you go out there saying anything at odds with what we're teaching the nurses and the doctors. So there really isn't much of an alternative medical system anymore. It's complementary, which means as long as your herb or your homeopathic or your nutrition advice does not conflict or contradict what we're doing, we'll tolerate you.
And so that's why even more we have to keep this sort of stuff going and hear from all of these different people and think for ourselves, basically.
That's it. Yeah.
Again,
but we without knowledge, we can't make any other choices. And the big thing is, once you seek help from the system, it's very difficult to choose a different path.
And we're not going against any normal medical thing. It's not, as we said at the beginning, it's just informing and
that's right. So therefore, you want to learn as much information, collect data as you can before you ever need assistance. And then you can make a truly informed medical choice and give informed medical consent for whatever procedures are recommended to you. And my role is to inform of, you know, findings that have been made and never disproven at this stage.
And just the story, you've actually just done the whole hour here. Barely said anything.
Sorry.
The story. No, but that's good. The story, it was riveting. You know, people want to hear it. So that's, you can talk about that as much as you want. Yeah.
I can. Because I've lived and breathed it, I can just talk
yeah.
Which is great.
I'll let you go and open your shop.
Thank you.
But,
yes.
I really appreciate you coming on, Julie. And we'll keep talking. I just got to go and work on something today with someone else, but I'll come back tonight and have a look at setting something up and where we can do it. Not too big to start, but
yes. Yep. Yeah, good idea.
When you mentioned the showgrounds, I thought that looks huge. Sounds huge.
Oh, well, no, it's very easy. That's why I suggested it, because it's affordable for everybody.
Oh,
you know?
Okay. So I'll have a look. Yeah.
It's very cheap. You know, like there's no like big convention center or hall or anything.
Okay.
Everyone can either
something showground.
It's Mullumbimby Showground.
Yeah.
So we had an 832 gathering there, and some people were just in a waterproof swag. Other people were in a van. Other people were in like a bus, you know, that they could sleep in and have a little kitchen. Other people had a caravan. It was I know that Mullumbimby has quite a few Airbnbs and hotels. So everyone chooses.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah. Okay. That's
and
quite
then there's cooking.
Yeah.
There's cooking facilities. There's a big outdoor covered area where we could do presentations, and it's affordable. Everybody can come at their own level. You know, bring your own food, and there's no organising food, accommodation. It's
and just
very
making
easy.
it 1 or 2 days anyway. But we'll look at that
weekend.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody who's watching. All my fans of Jan and Victoria. We'll get them up there or down there, whichever way they come. All the best. Speak soon. Okay. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
I am not just a product made to satisfy the pocket, nor do I require the same fame others seek. I desire your heart, the passions that make you a woman, any woman, every woman. My scents are a representation of purpose, courage, confidence, each botanical ingredient a praise of thanksgiving and self-care. The way I feel upon your flesh, a comfort of nourishment, as I feed dehydrated and depleted layers of skin, bursting for a new life of regrowth and youthfulness. If I stir your soul with each application, let it be known that you, too, are an intimate duet woman.